Every explorer, from Columbus to the modern satellite surveyor, has looked for it. A place of perfection, a terrestrial headquarters for the divine, the Garden of Eden. Most theologians tell you it's a metaphor, a spiritual state of mind. But in the Archivio Apostolico Vaticano, filed under the restricted index of territorial anomalies, there exists a map that contradicts the modern narrative. It is not a map of a metaphor. It is a coordinate-based schematic. The problem is not that Eden has disappeared. The problem is that we are looking for it in the wrong version of reality. Genesis 2:10 describes a river system that is physically impossible in our current topography, a single source splitting into four major world rivers. Today, we reopen the most sensitive dossier in theological history. Watch, we are tracing the Vatican's secret map back to its source. We aren't just looking for a garden. We are looking for the frequency lock that hid the cradle of humanity from our eyes. In the late 17th century, a Jesuit cartographer allegedly gained access to a series of scrolls brought back from the Crusades. These scrolls didn't describe the Holy Land of the Kings. They described the pre-Diluvian layout of the earth. This map, known in occult circles as the Mappa Paradisi, suggests that the garden was never destroyed. It was quarantined. The Vatican's secret records use a specific term for the location: LOCUS secretissimus, the most secret place. According to the original Hebrew text of Genesis, God planted a garden eastward, in Eden. But the word used for east, mikadem, carries a double meaning. It doesn't just mean a compass direction. It means before the beginning of the current timeline. The map doesn't show a place in the east. It shows a place outside of time. To find Eden, you must follow the water. The Bible names four rivers: the Pishon, the Gihon, the Hiddekel, and the Euphrates. We know where the Tigris and Euphrates are, but the Pishon and Gihon are ghost rivers. The Vatican Dossier, however, identifies them with startling precision. Modern geological scans have revealed fossil rivers, dried-up waterways that once flowed with massive volume. The Pishon, according to the secret map, flowed through the land of Havilah, a place rich in gold. But here is the technical glitch. The map shows these four rivers originating from a single vertical source. Not a spring in a mountain, but a descent from the firmament. And why can't we fly a drone over the coordinates and see the trees? The Vatican's Codex Paradiso explains the flaming sword in a way that sounds more like physics than mythology. The text says a cherubim was placed with a flaming sword which turned every way to keep the way of the tree of life. In the original Hebrew, the word for sword is cherub, which can also mean a devouring heat. The secret map labels this area not as a landmass, but as a phase-shifted zone. It's a high-frequency barrier. To enter Eden, one would have to change their biological vibration. If you approached it today, your equipment would fail, and your mind would likely fracture. There is a recurring note in the Vatican's private correspondence regarding the Gihon River. The text says it encircles the whole land of Kush. Geographically, Hanumat, this is impossible unless the rivers aren't flowing on the surface. The dossier suggests that the real Eden is located in a subterranean pocket beneath the Armenian Highlands, specifically near Mount Ararat. The Sumerians called it Dilmun. They described it as a place where the sun rises from the earth. The Vatican map shows a great aperture, a literal hole in the fabric of the Earth's crust that leads into a different atmospheric pressure. Why hide a garden? Because of what grows there: the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The Vatican's technical notes suggest that the fruit of these trees were not literal apples, but biological keys. They were substances that could alter the human genome permanently. The secret map includes a warning: the lineage of the exiles must not return until the frequency is restored. This implies that humanity was bio-locked out of the garden. We didn't just leave a place, we lost the capacity to see the place. There is a specific coordinate on the Vatican's map that aligns with a submerged valley in the Persian Gulf. 8,000 years ago, this was dry land, a lush, fertile delta where the four rivers would have converged before the sea levels rose. Local legends in Kuwait and Iraq speak of a hidden island that appears only during specific celestial alignments. The Vatican researchers have documented electromagnetic spikes in this exact region. Are we looking at the ruins of Eden, or are we looking at the anchor point for the dimensional bridge? In 1914, a priest named Father Alberto Maria de Agostini allegedly saw the original map. He wrote in his private diary that the map was moving. The rivers on the parchment were changing course in real time. This suggests that the garden is a living organism, a sentient environment that reacts to the observer. If the Vatican knows exactly where it is, why haven't they reclaimed it? Because the sword is still active. And according to the Dossier, it's not just keeping us out, it's keeping something in. As we conclude the first part of this investigation, we face a terrifying realization. The Vatican isn't hiding a location. They are hiding a gateway. The search for Eden has always been hindered by a single terrifying truth. The map isn't static. It is a living coordinate. However, the Vatican's secret map points to a physical anchor point that modern archaeology only discovered in 1994. Look at the site of Göbekli Tepe in modern-day Turkey. And the Vatican dossier identifies this not as a temple, but as the outer porch. The map shows that the pillars were not built to worship gods, but to stabilize the ground. The carvings of animals, predators, insects, and serpents are listed in the dossier as a biological census of the garden's original inhabitants. But the real garden isn't on the surface. It is directly beneath the limestone. Why is this region of Turkey a restricted military zone in several sectors? Why does the Vatican maintain a private observatory just a few hundred miles from here? The secret map labels the Tek Mountains as the ventilation shaft of the First Age. The dossier claims that a massive subterranean void exists here, pressurized by a gas that the ancient Hebrews called ruach, the breath. This isn't just air, it's a high oxygen, a high-frequency environment that allows for biological immortality. This is why the patriarchs lived for 900 years. They weren't different humans. They had access to the atmospheric signature of the garden. We must follow the money in the military. In the last 20 years, a series of scientific outposts have been established across the Armenian Highlands and the Persian Gulf. Officially, they are studying soil erosion or seismic activity. But the Vatican dossier suggests a joint task force is monitoring the dimensional thinning. The map shows 4 anchors. If you control these 4 points, you control the gateway. One is under a dam in Turkey, one is in a restricted zone in Iraq, the third is in a private estate in Saudi Arabia, and the fourth, it's hidden in plain sight inside the Vatican itself. Let's address the most occult part of the Vatican map, the Tree of Life. In the technical notes of the dossier, it is referred to as the Axis Mundi core. It isn't a tree in the botanical sense. It is a source code generator. It emitted a frequency that kept human DNA in a state of constant repair. When the exile occurred, the frequency was jammed. The flaming sword is actually a frequency jammer that keeps us in a state of cellular decay, what we call aging. The Vatican map shows that the tree is still pulsating. It is sending out a signal that our modern smart technology is inadvertently picking up. Why reveal this map now? Because the binding is failing. As the magnetic poles of the Earth shift, the phase-shifted zone of Eden is becoming visible to our spectrum of light. Pilots in the Middle East have reported mirage cities, lush, windy green landscapes appearing over the desert that do not show up on traditional radar. These are not mirages, they are bleed-throughs. The Vatican knows that the quarantine is ending. They aren't trying to find the garden anymore. They are trying to figure out how to survive its re-entry into our world. There is one final secret on the map. It shows that the Garden of Eden is not just a place, it is a body. The map's layout, the rivers, the trees, the center, perfectly matches the proportions of the human nervous system. To find the garden is to unlock the human temple. The Vatican hasn't been guarding a piece of land. They've been guarding the instruction manual for what humanity actually is. And if the garden is returning, what happens to the version of humanity that has forgotten its original frequency? The map is open. The coordinates are known, but the sword still turns. You can find the location, but can you survive the vibration? In our next investigation, we will look at the beings who were left behind to guard the outer porch, the ones the ancients called the cherubim, and why they look nothing like the angels in your church. The garden was never lost. We were simply blinded, and the blindfold is about to be removed.